Good morning. I'd like everyone to stand. I have some sad news that a loss of a member of our street scene staff at Blanavon, Di Smith, sadly passed away on the weekend, and I'd like to offer our condolences to family and friends and work colleagues. Can we have a minute's silence, please? For a dark, croeso, good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone to this hybrid meeting of Council. The Council meeting is being broadcast live over the internet and will be available to be viewed online now and in the future. We welcome the use of the Welsh language at meetings. I've had no requests for people to speak Welsh today, so this meeting will be conducted in English only. Members in the Chamber, please be aware that we're all on camera and you may be visible on screen when people around you are speaking. And please remember to speak clearly into your microphones. Members participating remotely, can you please refrain from using the chat function and instead use the raised hand icon to indicate when you wish to speak. Please remember to keep your microphones muted when you're not talking. May I remind members that as per the statutory guidance made under Section 4 of the Local Government Wales Measure 2011 and our formally adopted hybrid meeting policy, any member attending a meeting remotely must be able to be seen and heard by members and officers who are attending the meeting, as well as by members of the public viewing the meeting. So can I ask you all, please, to use your cameras for the duration of this meeting. Please be aware this meeting is being transcribed only for purposes of producing minutes. This transcript will be deleted once the committee approves the minutes, and the transcript should not be downloaded by anyone other than Democratic Services. Moving on to the agenda. Agenda item 1, attendance. Democratic Services will be making a note of members' attendance in the meeting, but should you lose connection, could you possibly leave a comment in the chat bar on your return to ensure that this is picked up? Agenda item 2, apologies for absence. Dominique, have we any apologies, please?
We've had apologies from Councillors Linda Clarkson, Nicholas Simons, David Williams and Lucy Williams.
Thank you, Dominique. Agenda item 3, declarations of...
Apologies, Madam Presiding Member. We've got a sound issue. Members can't hear us at home at the moment. 1 second, no. I'll just see if I can...
Just pause for a moment. We've got problems with the sound.
Members at home, can you hear us now?
Yeah.
Yep. Brilliant, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Apologies for that. Do we have any other apologies other than those I read out? Okay, thank you. Agenda item 3 is declarations of interest. Gareth Harris, Monitoring Officer, have you any advice for members, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I'm not aware of any interest to be declared today. Thank you.
Thank you. It must have been my mic. Can you all hear me at home now? No response. Sorry, members. Can you offline? Can you hear me? No.
Members, you can't hear. No volume at home.
If anyone else has been speaking, no, just you, Chris.
Yeah.
2 seconds, Madam Presiding Member. I'll just pause the meeting and swap laptops over. 2 seconds. Sorry.
Officer, have you any advice for members, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I'm not aware of any interest to be declared today. Thank you.
Are there anyone wishing to declare an interest? Agenda item 4, the confirmation of the Council minutes. That's those of the 9th of the 12th, 2026, starting on page 5 of your agenda. Members, could you possibly state whether you have anything to raise in relation to these minutes? If not, I will take them as approved. I'll take those as approved. Thank you very much. Agenda item 5 is update on actions. Members, the updates on what has been done to implement our previous decisions start on page 59 of the agenda. Could you possibly indicate whether you have any questions or comments? Thank you. Can I ask members if they agree to note those update on actions, please? Thank you, members. They are noted. Agenda item 6 is the receipt of petitions. We have 2 petitions today. And the first petition is in relation to a request to install a bus shelter on Green Meadow Way for school children. I'd like to invite Scott Hannon to present the petition, please. I believe Scott is online this morning.
Good morning, everybody. I assume I just read the petition.
Yes, please.
So every morning our children stand in the cold and rain at the bus stop on Green Meadow Way near the Coleg of Heatherley stop. As they wait for their bus to Gwynfu and St Albans comprehensive schools, there is no bus shelter to protect them from the elements. This means our children often start their school day wet and cold, which is not only uncomfortable for them, but also impacts their concentration and ability to learn. What's frustrating is that there is a bus shelter located just across the street, a clear indicator that this is an area deemed deserving of protective infrastructure. However, the children who gather there daily are left without cover. We believe that every child deserves to start their school day in comfort, and having them wait in unpleasant and sometimes unsafe conditions is unacceptable. Installing the bus shelter at this stop would be a straightforward solution to this ongoing issue. It would ensure that our children are protected from adverse weather conditions whilst waiting for their buses. This simple addition can have a significant impact on their well-being and school performance. We call on the local council to recognise this need and commit to installing a bus shelter on Green Meadow Way. It is time for our community to support our children by providing them with the basic facilities they need. Investing in a bus shelter is an investment in their education and future.
Thank you, Scott. Members, do you agree for the petition to be sent to the relevant executive member for them to consider and respond to the report? Thank you. Thank you, Scott. That will be taken. The second petition is in relation to Greater Gwent Torfaen Pensions Fund investment. I'd like to invite Stephanie Westmethkett and Kay Lawrence to present the petition, please. We'll give them a couple of minutes to come through. Welcome this morning, ladies. Thank you. If you'd like to read from your petition.
Okay, hi. We've all seen the terrible situation in Gaza. We've all seen children with their limbs blown off, freezing cold, lack of food. And because of that, we've started this petition to try and do something. We want to stop Gwent County Council Pension Fund investing in companies linked to genocide and apartheid in Palestine. Public sector workers deserve pensions built on ethics, not arms deals. The Gwent Pension Fund invests in companies such as BAE Systems, Airbus and Northrop Grumman, which supply weapons and technology used in Israel's military actions and the occupied West Bank. Also, so-called complicit companies such as McDonald's, Airbus, which operate in the occupied West Bank, Airbnb, which operate in the occupied West Bank, and banks like Barclays and HSBC, which heavily invest there. These investments risk complicity in breaches of international law and human rights and damage public trust. We therefore call on the Gwent Council Pension Fund to do the right thing, divest from companies linked to illegal occupations, war crimes against humanity, disclose all investments and review its ethical standards, and to ensure pensions are invested responsibly and transparently. Thank you.
Could I also add that one of the companies is Elbit Systems, and they still manufacture cluster munitions, which are completely illegal. But
sorry, we're only allowed to accept the petition that you've presented.
We realise that now. Thank you.
Members, do you agree for the petition to be sent to the relevant executive member for them to consider, respond and report back?
Can I endorse it to make sure it does? Thank you. Yeah.
Councillor
Yeah. Can I just make sure I endorse it, you know, that it's sent to the relevant executive member?
Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies. Thank you. Thank you to the members of the public that submitted those petitions. That takes us to agenda item 7, which is the public question time. There are no public questions today, so we'll move on to agenda item 8, which is the announcements from the Leader or Chief Executive. Leader, do you have any announcements, please?
I'd just like to associate myself with the minute silence in memory of David Smith. You know, a much valued member of the street scene team. I'd also like to say a big thank you to two members of staff, one of whom is moving on to a new job and one of whom retired since the last council meeting. First of all, Matt Lewis, who's been head of our SRS and a key part of that part of our operations for a number of years now. So thank you all for all your hard work and innovation. Matt, and good luck in pastures new. And secondly, to Sarah Paxton, the outgoing Head of Adults and Commissioning. We wish Sarah well on a long and happy retirement and thank her for all her work for both the Council and the people of the Borough. Can I also say a big thank you to all the staff who've been involved in preparation, clean-up work ahead of the numerous storms that we've had so far this winter. I think we all wish for a calmer period of weather, but in the storms both before and since Christmas, staff have gone above and beyond to prepare the borough and to clean up after storms. So a big thank you to all those staff for their hard work.
Thank you, Leader. Deputy Chief Executive David Leach, do you have anything to report?
No, nothing further to report. Thank you, Madam Presiding Member.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 9, which is the Council Tax Reduction Scheme, which is on page 37 of your agenda this morning. Andrew Ludgrove, Strategic Director Resources, could you deliver this report, please?
Good morning, Madam Presiding Member. Good morning, members. The Council Tax Reduction Scheme helps low-income households pay less council tax. We offer support available for those on benefits, people living alone, student carers and a range of other situations where people need help paying their council tax. The Council is required to formally approve its Council Tax Reduction Scheme each year prior to the 31st of January, which is why you've got the paper in front of you. If there's a failure to adopt a local scheme, then the default is the national scheme will then take place. and that's slightly less generous than our current scheme. The proposal is to retain the increased discretions as agreed in previous years in our council tax reduction scheme, so no changes. These are detailed in section 5.2 of the paper. We're currently working with just over 9,000 households who are engaged in the scheme with us. The council tax reduction scheme is part of the wider support we offer low-income households. This includes discretionary housing payments and things of that nature. We advertise the availability of the scheme widely using the council's various media channels, but if anyone is watching this meeting who is struggling to pay their council tax, please get in touch with us. You can do that via our website, or we've got a free phone telephone number, which is 0300 456 3559. Many thanks.
Thank you, Andrew. Members, any comments? Stewart, sorry.
I've got off to get Stephen. Yes. Madam Presiding Chair. Just a question. But clearly, the scheme is necessary for us to vote on, and otherwise, I understand from reading the memos that the changes are quite minimal, shall we say. My question would be: is what checks have we got in place to ensure that that pensioners of these 9,500 people, these 9,000 people that we've got currently on the scheme, what are we doing to ensure that people, particularly our pensions and those who are migrating onto universal credit, are not underpaid or missed out altogether?
Thank you for the question. We work closely with a number of organisations, including the DWP, to engage with people who are in receipt of benefits, and also those that think they may be in receipt of benefits or would qualify for the scheme. In terms of the arrangements we have for making sure that people are eligible for it, we do a lot to advertise that. We work with a lot of voluntary organisations, people like the Legion, all those type of organisations who engage with us. It is a continual challenge to make sure that people who are entitled to benefits do receive them. And part of that is getting the message, and members, I know you speak to lots of people who think they might be entitled to, or you identify maybe, and we're very happy to speak to them on your behalf or directly to them.
Thank you for that comprehensive answer.
Thank you, Andrew. Councillor Hunt, Leader.
I would like to welcome this report and the outline that it gives of the both statutory and discretionary exemptions at paragraph 5.2 of the report. I note the 6.1 of the report mentions the 9,351 recipients of CTRS, which means we're helping some of the most in-need households in Torvine, and I welcome the assistance that this scheme gives them. I also welcome the fact you mentioned about the discretions that we use and the wider supports available here, especially in comparison to schemes over the border in England. I think our support goes both wider and deeper to help those in need, so I welcome that. I'd also like to point out 6.2 and 6.3 of the report, which mention the proactive use of discretionary housing payments that we have here in Torvine, and I'd like to highlight that scheme to any residents in need who are listening. We're consistently the leading council in Wales in terms of using those discretionary housing payments, both because we recognise that helps people, but also because we recognise that if we can help people get through a temporary situation where they're struggling, then it can both enable them to get better outcomes, but also save the ratepayer money in the longer term through decreased use of acute services. So I'd very much commend that mentioned at 6.2, and also 6.3 mentioned some of the other help that's available. I would like to commend the work of the Revenues and Benefits team. A lot of the work they do is behind the scenes. The work they do is necessarily confidential, so they can't shout about it, but they do help people across the borough week in, week out, and they make a real difference to the lives of those people. So I'd like to thank those staff for their hard work.
Thank you very much. Any further comments?
Madam Presiding Member, we've got Councillor Elizabeth Haynes online.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions, really. The report states that costs are not expected to rise significantly. what contingency exists if caseloads or take-up increase beyond those forecasts? With such high caseloads, are current staffing levels and systems sufficient to manage the scheme moving forward? And really my last point is, what targeted support is available for residents who are digitally excluded or vulnerable so that they can access the scheme?
Thank you, Councillor Haynes. Andrew?
Thank you very much for the question. In terms of the financial headroom, there is a little bit of contingency built into the budget that we have, and we'll ask Council to approve next in March. In addition, we also hold general reserves, so if there was a situation where there was a spike in the increase of people claiming this arrangement, we do have ways that we can cover that cost, so that is covered within our base budget. In terms of the staffing levels, I think we've got the staffing levels about right, as the leader has just mentioned. It is a busy, tough job for those teams, and we do keep those staffing levels under review continually, and we do move people between different parts of the service to help peaks in demand for there. In terms of digitally excluded people, as I mentioned before, we do have a free phone telephone number, so for people who are not comfortable using digital methods to contact us or others, they can ring us up and have a phone conversation. And all of those phone conversations are very helpful for us understanding the situation, but we also can reassure people who are quite often in quite distress because it's quite a tough time to be dealing with the financial pressures. So it's a good way of having a two-way conversation with people. So, again, as I mentioned, if people are concerned, give us a call, give the team a call, and they will talk you through the options and work out what's the best arrangement for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for Andrew? No. That takes us to the recommendations, which start on page 65 of the report at 9.1. There are 4 recommendations there. Members, can I ask you whether you agree with those recommendations? Are there anybody against those recommendations? Any abstentions? That report is carried. Thank you, members. Takes us to agenda item 10, which is the mid-year Treasury Management Monitoring Report 25-26, and this starts on page 81 in your agenda. Robert Green, Head of Financial Services, could you deliver this report for us, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Good morning, Council. So the report in front of you today is our mid-year Treasury Management report. This is a report that is a requirement to come to full Council as part of the Treasury Management Code. So you would receive 3 reports a year on Treasury Management, this being the second of those. The purpose of the report is to outline our Treasury Management activity for the first 6 months of the year, and provide an update on our capital programme and demonstrate compliance with the prudential indicators set by full Council last March as part of the wider budget meeting. It's important to note that Governance and Audit Committee have already received this report as part of standard sort of governance arrangements in Treasury Management and have raised no matters for Council to consider today. So just in terms of the specifics of the report, so looking at the capital programme to begin with, tables 1 and 2 give the position as it currently stands. There's been an increase in the budget during the year. That's pretty typical and normal because of the way that grant funding gets allocated for specific schemes as the year progresses. And examples of that being things like active travel, shared prosperity fund, and also this year, for the first time, coal tips funding. So they're examples of things that have been added to the programme in year, increasing the overall value. In terms of our borrowing, so the report highlights our activity to date in terms of borrowing, and critically we've ensured that we've complied with our authorised limit and our operational boundaries. So they're 2 figures that, in the case of the authorised limit, we absolutely cannot exceed, and in the case of the operational boundary, we can only exceed on a temporary basis, and we've complied with both of those. You'll see from the report that the capital financing requirement has increased beyond the original estimate. However, that's mainly due to, only due to a change in accounting standards around the way that we account for leases. So it hasn't actually increased the level of borrowing we need to undertake. And also, just to highlight that in terms of long-term borrowing, whilst we have an ultimate underlying long-term borrowing need, we are continuing to use shorter-term temporary borrowing because of the anticipation that interest rates will ultimately reduce over the sort of short to medium term. Therefore, it doesn't make sense to lock into long-term borrowing at this point, so we'll continue to wait until rates become more favourable. In terms of investments, our return on our investments has generally been positive and has exceeded standard industry benchmarks. Our investment balance has generally hovered around 15 million, which is in line with our target, and critically it's comfortably above the minimum 10 million balance that we have to have in order to be able to access preferential borrowing rates. So they're the main aspects of the report. Nothing else to comment. Okay.
Thank you very much. Are there any members wishing to comment or ask a question?
Madam Presiding Member, we've got Councillor Haynes online.
Councillor Haynes.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points, really. Governance and audit raised no concerns in December. Are there any emerging risks since then that members should be aware of? After all, no issues raised doesn't mean no risk exists. What are the risks of relying on short-term borrowing if interest rates remain higher for longer than expected? And what triggers would prompt the Council to move from short to long-term borrowing? And the last one really is some elements of the capital programme, the waste transfer station, etc., have been reprofiled into future years. At what point does reprofiling become a sign of delivery failure, and what assurance can be given that any grant funding is not put at risk?
Okay, so thank you for the questions. I'll try and remember and address all of those in turn. So in terms of Governance and Audit Committee, they considered the report on the 18th of December, so actually it's relatively recent. There have been no sort of significant changes or risks that I need to bring to your attention subsequent to that meeting. In terms of short versus long-term borrowing, you know, it is a fine balancing act, and there is always an element of sort of judgment required and risk involved. And I think with Treasury management, the only thing you can ever be certain of is that hindsight will tell you what you should have done. Like any decision, you know, we'd make with our own personal finances. The general reason for us holding off long-term borrowing at this stage is because the general consensus and advice from our external Treasury management advisors is that interest rates should steadily reduce over the forthcoming period. Now, there's never any guarantee of that because, as we know, significant events, global events or national events can impact interest rates. So there is no guarantee, but that is generally the advice that we're being given. It's been the consistent advice for probably a couple of years now, and generally speaking, that has been the trend in terms of interest rates, that they are falling, albeit very steadily. So that's our rationale. But like I said, there is risk, but we try and manage that risk by having a balance of short and long-term borrowing within our portfolio. So we do still have a large proportion of long-term borrowing, which means some rates are locked in. And clearly, if we get the sense that rates are starting to plateau or getting close to plateauing, it would be at that point that we might consider switching to long-term borrowing, because, as I said, we ultimately know that need is there. In terms of the capital programme and slippage, again, it's a bit of a judgment, but I suppose where specific schemes are concerned, our measure is generally, is there any progress? Obviously, if there's no progress and we're continually slipping money year on year, that could be deemed a sign that a project is not going to come to fruition. But generally, as long as there's some spend and there's clear progress happening, then we would be comfortable with slipping that money forward. You are right to highlight the risk around external grant funding. Clearly, we're not completely in control of those funding sources. However, where we believe there's concern that we may need to slip external funding forward, we would always have regular conversation with the awarding body, which is generally going to be Welsh Government, but not exclusively, to try and manage that risk. And the other thing we would often do is look to utilise external funding sources before we use our own, therefore minimising the risk that we would need to slip that funding forward and make those requests, which could be problematic. So hopefully that's addressed the questions.
Yes, thank you very much for those assurances.
Thank you, Councillor Haynes. Any further comments or questions? Councillor Evans.
Yeah, on page 82, I was looking at the slippage, which will have an impact on 26-27 budget. Is there a concern that future projects, even though we've got that slippage, with increased costs, may have an adverse impact on the budget.
So generally speaking, when we slip sums forward, it's where we've already secured the funding. So slipping it from one year to the next, in theory, shouldn't have any major impact, particularly if it is external grant funding or funding held in reserves or something like that. I guess the only real time it can become a risk and potentially have a financial impact in terms of, say, our revenue budget is where we're looking to fund schemes through the use of borrowing. And although we don't link the borrowing we take with specific schemes, if generally we're pushing our borrowing requirement into the future and interest rates were to move adversely, then that could have an impact upon the Council's revenue budget. But as I said in response to the last question, the current advice and forecast that interest rates, if anything, are going to move favourably. So actually, in a perverse way, slippage where borrowing is involved could actually have a minor financial benefit. But generally, we would always be erring on the side of prudence and try and ensure that we're covered for most eventualities anyway.
Thank you. Okay, Steve. I don't see any other members wishing to speak or comment. The recommendations are on page 88 of the report. Can I ask members whether they agree with these recommendations, please? Are there any members against the recommendations? Are there any abstentions? That report is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Agenda item 11, the annual governance statement, page 89 of your agenda. Delith Harris, Monitor Officer. Could you deliver the report for us, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. The purpose of this report is to present you with the annual governance statement for your approval. So the statement sets out the governance processes and arrangements that have been operating within the authority for the year April 2024 to March 2025. And the officers responsible for the various governance processes have contributed to the contents of the statement. I don't propose to go through the entire document, as it is largely the same as the previous year, but will highlight some of the key updates. Paragraphs 5.4 to 5.9 set out what has been done in the last year to ensure that there is engagement from citizens and key stakeholders. So, for example, a participation strategy for children and young people was approved, and that outlines how public engagement with all ages has taken place. Paragraph 5.7 refers to the invitation to register for the People's Panel, and in September 2024, a participatory group for officers within the Council was established. Paragraph 6.6 states that the Council adopted its third delivery plan, and that sets out how the Council meets the ambitions set out in the County Plan. Paragraphs 8.1 to 8.3 refer to the federated model of political governance with the new arrangements between Torfaen and Blaenau Gwent. Paragraph 10.9 refers to the improvement group looking at children's services and scrutinising costs and service activity to take greater control over demand and accelerate financial recovery. That was similar to the arrangements that were already in place for education. Paragraph 11 is the review of effectiveness, and the internal audit team continues to review the control environment of the Council, and the overall opinion has improved from the previous year from reliable to sound with scope for improvement. There are no significant control issues that need to be reported, and the review of effectiveness has concluded that the arrangements are effective. So the recommendation is to approve the annual governance statement for the year 2024-2025. Thank you, Madam Presiding Member.
Thank you, Della. Any comments, Councillor Jones?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I'd just like to thank Delith for this report. And in my opinion, we run a very tight ship in terms of governance and audit. I sit on the Audit and Governance Committee. This report has been considered by them, which should give all members in this chamber reassurance. It's a dry subject, but there's a lot of hard work goes into meeting the principles of governance and particularly our audit arrangements. We're constantly being looked at by Wales Audit Office, and as Delith said, we've been judged to be effective in audit arrangements, and the staff deserve credit for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Any further comments? Don't see any. Recommendations start on page 89 of the report. Can I ask members whether they agree with those recommendations, please? Are there any members against those recommendations and any abstentions? That report is carried. Thank you very much, members. Takes us to agenda item 12, responding to the panel performance assessment peer review, which starts on page 109 of your agenda. Tom Roberts, Business and Democratic Support Services Manager, could you deliver this report for us, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member, and good morning, members. Today's report is for full council to note Torfaen's final response to its panel performance assessment. As you know, every council in Wales must undergo a panel performance assessment review once every 5 years as a statutory requirement under the Local Government Elections Act 2021. Torfaen received its final PPA report on the 1st of July 2025 with the outcomes of the report noted by Council. The review has concluded Torfaen is a well-led council with strong member-officer relationships and a clear role understanding, enabling effective policy setting and rapid implementation. The council has robust governance systems and a positive organisational culture. It has set out a bold and innovative vision to tackle health inequality and sustainability challenges, creating an opportunity to advance the federated model. Delivering this vision requires rapid translation of Marmot principles and early intervention and prevention into actionable detail. There is potential to use the Apollo model, that is the Council's approach to medium-term financial planning, to drive transformation and address complex issues. While leadership is strong and well supported, the Council must avoid over-reliance on key individuals by developing a broader leadership programme. The peer review team also made 5 recommendations aimed at strengthening our delivery around the review's areas of focus, that is to say federation, Marmot and communities, and early intervention prevention, whilst also providing additional recommendations around communications and engagement and workforce development. Our response set out in Appendix 1 accepts these recommendations, describing the planned areas of activity against each recommendation we have received. The action plan also gives an overview of the work carried out in each area since the panel performance assessment fieldwork was undertaken. Subsequently, the Council's draft response was received for review by the Governance and Audit Committee as part of the statutory process in December 2025. Following review, the committee made no recommendations regarding changes to the Council's response. Activity will be monitored as part of the Council's service planning process and reported into the Council's Governance and Audit Committee. Council is asked to note the final response as part of the statutory process prior to the final report being communicated to relevant stakeholders as required under the Local Government and Elections Act 2021. I'll hand back to the presiding member at that point, and I'll be happy, along with colleagues from the Council Executive Team, to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Any questions or comments? Councillor Evans, Councillor Watkins.
Yeah. Are we finding our early intervention and prevention is bringing the benefits and the outcome of this peer review?
If I can come in on that one, Councillor, yes, we're starting to. So early intervention and prevention and the model for that will take time to see the full benefits that we anticipate, but we're already starting to see some of the early results in that. So we're seeing significant stabilisation and improvement in the numbers coming into some of our core acute services, not least, and colleagues may want to comment further on this, within children's services. So we are seeing the benefits of that early intervention and prevention model. What's important to us, and what I think is noted in the peer panel assessment, is that we don't take our eye off the ball and that we continue to accelerate the pace of that if it's going to be so central to the work that we do. But yes, we are starting to see those results in some areas already.
Thank you. Councillor Jane Watkins.
Thank you. Mine's more of a comment than a question, to be honest, because I'd like to commend the Council on the steps that it's taken, which have led to the positive feedback in section 3.3 of this report. The report highlights the effective government systems that we've now got in place, the positive member-officer relationships, and the ambitious and innovative vision to address health inequality, which directly affects our residents. So I think the Council should be very pleased and proud of the hard work that's gone into achieving this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. Councillor Stewart Ashley.
I think I know what Dave Leach was saying about the document being a positive, live document. It's a point I made in governance and audit. That's where it's very, very useful because we can see the picture, as it were. Does anyone want to comment on that? I know you have already, Dave, but a further comment on it would be useful.
Nothing further to add, really, but yes, I agree. It's critical that we maintain that focus on early intervention and prevention and the impact that it will make. That's going to be critical to the success of what the peer panel are recommending.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Sue Morgan.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I just wanted to pose the challenge, really, that how do we maintain this level of confidence and exceptional widespread support for the leader and the chief executive, and build on that strong golden thread of positivity which is described by the peer review panel. These are really precious attributes to have our staff and our communities supporting the direction of travel, and to have that clear sense of a positive ambition for Torfaen. It really inspired me to think that this is recognised by an external panel, but how do we maintain that in an era where social media seems intent on focusing on the negative?
Yeah, it's a brilliant question. There's two parts to that for me. One is how do we maintain that across that leadership space, and members will be aware that one of the things we've really focused on as an executive team is how we can work together corporately and collaboratively. So we are not a series of individual directors focusing on our own departments, but we own that corporate vision and the delivery of that corporate vision. That allows us then to respond differently to some of those challenges that we face more broadly. It's going to be critical for us through the design and the delivery of the Torfaen deal that we have those different conversations with our communities to try and build some of that narrative about the positive work that's going on and change the focus so that the council is working with its communities and really starting to build up that positive attitude for some of the activity that we're delivering. So the Torfaen deal will be a central pillar in making sure that we sustain the improvements that have started to happen already.
Councillor Elizabeth Haynes.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to pick up on some of the big changes that we've been going through lately, i.e. the Federation with Blaenau Gwent, the adoption of the Marmot principles and the focus on early intervention and prevention. I mean, really what I'm asking is, can you give any assurance that staff have and will be supported through what is clearly a period of significant change here?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be, again, really important that we do that. And that's clearly an area that the panel assessment has identified. Within our response, you'll see activity there about building up the change management processes that we go through and the support for the wider leadership to make sure that we are embedding some of that messaging and supporting people through that change process. There is a lot of change activity going on. But we are working across our teams now through our group managers, our service managers and our heads of service to make sure that we're really clearly communicating that vision and supporting those staff then to look at working in that different way. We're asking a lot of staff in terms of working in that different way, and we need to make sure we've got those support mechanisms. And through our Investing in Our People programme, that's exactly what we're looking to implement.
Thank you for that. You know, that has been my concern, and I'm very grateful that we've got some sort of support in, but I'd just like I'd like us to keep an eye on the situation because I wouldn't want anybody left behind or feeling left out.
Thank you, Councillor Haynes. Tom has got a comment.
So just to follow what Dave said, just to reassure Councillor Haynes that similar questions were raised at the Governance and Audit Committee, and Stephen was there then, and he addressed the committee and gave assurances that there was ample support for staff, and he was acutely aware of the huge amounts of change that the council has been going through in the last sort of year and 18 months or so.
Thank you, Tom. Councillor Anthony Hunt, leader.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I'd just like to say how challenging but also really valuable I found this process. As many of you will know, the peer assessment team consists of former senior staff at council level, people from outside the local government sector, and also a leading politician from within the local government sector. And they really do grill sort of Estin style through the council, ask questions at different levels of staff and as well as us as councillors, and really try and get really in depth. I've been through the process in another council from the other side as well, so I know how thorough it is. So I'd just like to thank the team for engaging in that process, because they gave up a lot of their time, and I did find it really useful personally to make me introspective about what we're doing, to sort of stress test some of the presumptions that sometimes we all make, and sort of try and model things as best as possible going forwards. So I really welcome the positive feedback at section 3.3 and also the constructive recommendations at section 3.4 of the reports. I particularly welcome the panel's view on our ambition. I say that because I certainly think Stephen would say this even more in a forthright way. We've never wanted to just exist on the status quo or sit in the middle of the road. We're trying to be ambitious, we're trying to be innovative and do things differently. And I recognise the challenges that they pose about that, but I also welcome the fact that they recognise that ambition and they saw it as the right way forward. I do hope our staff feel recognised for their work. This is a reflection on all of them, not just on us, because at the end of the day, they're the ones whose efforts run services. So I hope they feel that this is recognition for the quality of the work that they do, because as has been said in some of the questions and comments, very often the only time anything gets reported is when something is negative, as opposed to the good work that those staff do day in, day out, very often going above the call of duty on behalf of the people that we represent. I appreciate as well the fact that taking the innovative path is not always the easy path. Sometimes we've asked for change, and sometimes some of those teams would have been doing things the way they've been doing them for a while. And I know from the other side of the fence, sometimes when people come above you and recommend doing things differently, it can sometimes be a challenge to establish practice. So I think that's a very fair challenge from Councillor Haynes in her question today. But I think in everything we're doing, with Marmots, with the Federation, students of the history of South Wales will know why I love calling it the Fed, but the Federation work, in the work we're doing on Marmot, in the work we're doing on early intervention and prevention, there's that challenge there that I think is a valid one, both for myself, leading members, and the Chief Executive, Dave as the Deputy, and the other directors and leaders. How do we make sure we take staff with us, explain to them what we're doing and what, I think importantly, why we're trying to do it. I think that is a key job. It's one that Stephen sort of jumps into with relish, and I know Dave and others do too. They've been holding meetings with groups of staff, wider meetings with staff to try and explain the direction that we're on and why we think it's the best way forwards. So I really welcome this report, both the recognition that it gives, which I think is important, not just for us but for staff, but also the challenge in how we take that forward, how we make sure we don't take our foot off the gas when we need to drive things forward, how we do make sure we properly integrate things like early intervention and prevention into the work we do. Lots of public service organisations, in my experience, talk about early intervention and prevention. Very few actually embed it in what they do. Similarly, with the Federation work, we could allow that just to be skin deep, but we've got to drive it forward to get all the benefits out of it, in my view. And also with Marmot, that's not something we can afford to just pay lip service to. There is a crushing challenge in the population we serve around healthy life expectancy, especially in Torfaen amongst women. It's very easy as a local council it would be very easy to throw our hands in the air and say that's too big a challenge, it's too difficult. I don't think we can afford to, because that impacts hugely on the quality of life that our people experience, but it also impacts hugely on the sustainability of acute services. And if all we keep doing is doing the same things and expecting different outcomes, more and more pressure will be put on limited resource in those services, and I think that's completely unsustainable. So I really welcome the encouragement also, and the challenge that this report gives to drive forward with things like Marmot, to not see it as ancillary to the work we do, but to see it as the core purpose of us as leaders of place. And I really welcome the backing that that report gives, but also the challenge that it gives us too.
Thank you, Leader. Don't see any other comments. The recommendations start on page 112 of the report. I ask members whether they agree with those recommendations to note the report. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That report is carried and noted. Agenda item 13, which is the appointment of monitoring officer, page 145. Jason Lewis, Corporate Director of Resources. Could you deliver this report for us, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. My colleague to my left, Delith Harris, our monitoring officer, has decided to reduce her working hours from 30 hours per week with effect from the 1st of April, and with the possibility of further reductions later. Because these non-working periods do not meet the legislative definition of absence, the monitoring officer cannot delegate her duties to the Deputy Monitoring Officer, who is Polly Ellis, our Head of Legal Services, during those times. So to ensure full compliance with the Local Government and Housing Act, Council is required to make a formal appointment of monitoring officer when Delith is not contractually required to work. The proposal in front of you then is that Polly Ellis is appointed as monitoring officer for all periods when the current monitor officer is not contractually required to work. She will continue to serve as deputy monitoring officer at all other times. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Any comments? It's pretty straightforward. No. The recommendation starts on page 146 of the report. I ask members whether they agree with those recommendations. Anyone against? Any abstentions? That report is carried. Thank you, Jason. Agenda item 14, which is the appointment of independent members on the Ethics and Standards Committee, on page 147. Delith Harris, Monitoring Officer, could you deliver this report for us, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. The purpose of this report is to appoint an independent member and 2 reserve members. The Ethics and Standards Committee is required to have 4 independent members. One of the independent members did not take up the offer to extend her appointment on the committee, leaving a vacancy. On the 26th of November last year, a panel comprising of the chair of the committee and 2 other members met to interview applicants for the position. Following the interviews, the panel recommended that Mrs. Lorraine Morgan be appointed as an independent member for a term of 4 years, from the 21st of January today, and that 2 reserve members be appointed, namely Mr. Peter Keane and Mr. Alan Jeremiah. So this means that should a vacancy arise in the future, the position of independent member will be offered to a reserve member without the need to attend a further interview. All 3 candidates were deemed very suitable by the panel. So the recommendation is the Council approves the recommendation of the interview panel to appoint Mrs. Lorraine Morgan as an independent member of the Ethics and Standards Committee for a period of 4 years from the 21st of January 2026, and to appoint 2 reserve members, namely Mr. Peter Keane and Mr. Alan Jeremiah. Thank you, Madam Presiding Member.
Thank you, Delith. I think that's a straightforward recommendation. Can I ask members whether they agree with those recommendations, please? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Council agrees that report. Agenda item 15, which is the motions on notice. There are no motions on notice, so we'll move on to member question time. There are 5 questions today, and the first question is Councillor Jason O'Connell.
Thank you, Chair. Cumbright Stadium was once a jewel in the sporting crown of Torfaen, hosting many famous sporting events over years gone by, but its main stand has been left to decay and is now a dangerous eyesore. What work is this council undertaking to replace, repair or overhaul the structure, modernise it and return it to full operational use?
Sir Fiona Cross.
Thank you for your question. Since April, the Council has been working with our new leisure provider and delivery partner, Halo Leisure. Halo has taken an active approach to assess our leisure assets and how they can be improved to support their commercial operation and deliver high-quality local sport and leisure provision. For example, in the relatively short time that they've been active, at Cumbrae Stadium, Halo have already invested around 300,000 to undertake improvements, including the expansion and refurbishment of the gym and enable the reopening of the clip and climb facility, which I understand will be opening soon. This is in addition to their investment across other sites across the borough and TCBC's own investment in facilities such as the roof of the Bowls Club, which was 150,000. To address the longer-term future of the main stand, Halo has submitted a grant application to Cumbrae Community Council for a comprehensive feasibility study. If successful, the study would take place in the summer and involve key partners and stakeholders. Its recommendations would, of course, provide a clear rationale to support investment priorities and assist with any grant applications for funding. The Council's Health, Sport and Fitness team, who have an excellent track record in supporting sport and leisure groups to apply and secure funding, will continue to work closely with Halo to identify and pursue relevant funding to enhance facilities. This would be in addition to funding identified by other council teams and departments. Although the partnership is still in its early stages, it's already proving to be a positive and constructive relationship. Halo has shown clear ambition to deliver a high-quality commercial offer while working with us to support wider priorities around community wellbeing, prevention and the Torfaen deal. I hope this provides some assurances that work is progressing.
Not a welcome answer. I look forward to seeing it progress over the coming months and years. Cumbrae Stadium, especially the bandstand, I think we've all been there over the years, and we look forward to it coming back into operational use. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillors. Councillor Janet Jones, question 2.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Are there any discussions yet on the potential future use of the Arthur Jenkins Home, closed in November, still empty and becoming a site of antisocial behaviour and numerous rumours?
Councillor Joanne Gordon.
Thank you, Presiding Member, and thank you for your question, Councillor Jones. So we've been in regular contact with the tenant of the building since they closed in November, and officers have made several visits. In order for the building to be returned to the council, a formal deed of surrender is required to be signed. This has been drafted and agreed by our legal team. However, a condition of the deed is that the building is returned in an acceptable condition to the council. At present, the building still has a lot of furniture and rubbish stored both within and outside. You're nodding in agreement, and it's the tenant's responsibility to arrange removal or disposal of those items. They advised us last week that they are in the process of clearing the building, so we'd expect the keys to be returned by the end of the month. Until then, the building remains the responsibility of the tenant. However, in readiness for the keys to be returned and at our cost, we have made efforts to limit antisocial behaviour by fitting metal shutters to protect all ground floor windows and doors and erecting harassed fencing. In regards to future use of the building, once we have the keys, officer will survey the premises, draw up an option appraisal to identify proposed future users. This appraisal will include consultation with all internal service areas to see if there's a demand internally for use of the building. Local councillors will continue to be updated by asset management, and can I thank you for your efforts to keep communication honest and accurate within Blenavon, so I'm sure that goes some way to dispelling any rumours. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. Yes, it's a continuing issue. Councillor Hall and myself are having constant issues from residents. I thank you for insurance, but can I ask that when the keys do come back and the consultations begin, that we as ward members can be involved, because it's a significant site and it's important for the residents of Blenavon to have an input on what we can significantly put there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. All 3 ward members will be consulted as part of that appraisal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. Thank you.
Thank you both. Question 3, Councillor Nick Hawler.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. And I apologise, my neurodiversity gets into questions and makes them longer than they should be, so I do apologise. Councillor Gordon, with the news of Christmas period of the Lion and the Cellar Bar in Glenavon closing due to retirement, this is a massive blow to our community for those that have been employed by this establishment. The Lion Hotel is the main point for accommodation in our World Heritage Site. Surely, if TBC want to embrace our heritage town, we must support and encourage businesses to invest in our community before it's too late. A prime example is the Market Tavern, where a large amount of funding was spent to renovate the property, but the retail area has stood empty for months. My question: we have heard that TBC want to encourage tourism into our area. Please could you advise members on a way that this is moving forward, as it would benefit all of us in Torfaen and just not Glenavon? Could this be by reinstating the tourism manager to promote the jewels that we have in our crown within Torfaen? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawler. Councillor Gordon.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Hawler. And yes, it was a blow to the community, and for me to see that the Lion closed, and of course for the staff employed there. Our economic development team have visited the business to discuss their position, and the owners are currently considering the future options for the building and the business. So the team will continue to provide business support, including help for those individuals whose employment will be impacted. To confirm the position for Market Tavern, all grant work has been completed. Unfortunately, the current occupier has left, so we are working with the landlord to bring forward alternative uses. To confirm, there are other businesses who have expressed an interest in occupying the building. On the wider issue of encouraging and supporting tourism as part of the emerging blueprint for growth, work is underway to produce a destination management plan, so a DMP. Using UK Government Shared Prosperity Funding, officers will work with all stakeholders in coming months to develop a vision for the role that tourism plays within our local economy. The DMP will include a detailed action plan, consolidating new and existing activity to drive delivery of the vision. This should be ready by the summer. Unfortunately, we're not in the position to include a dedicated tourism officer in our economic development team. With limited resources mean we need to be flexible, we need to be agile, so our team covers a wide-ranging agenda whilst ensuring team resilience. That future grant programmes may unlock some opportunities so that we can have some dedicated resource to deliver specific aspects of the action plan. Thank you.
Councillor Hawler.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. That's a very positive response. Could I reply? Would the executive member give assurances that no changes uses looked at this hotel when it's potentially sold at auction on the 18th of March? As I and the members that represent Glenavon firmly believe that this hotel is very much needed for our community and visitors that visit our World Heritage Site. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawler. It's not in my gift to agree that, is it? That would be a planning application to change the class. But yes, I agree, as this is the only hotel, isn't it, currently in Glenavon. It serves our tourism industry. We have people staying up there for people to visit those local attractions, for people who are going cycling, people who go up on the Brecon Beacon. So absolutely, I do agree that we need to keep that as a hotel.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Question 4, Councillor Nick Hawler to Councillor Amanda Owen.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Over the years, we've continuously asked for car parks within our community to be relined to increase the amount of parking available, as residents do not park thoughtfully within them. This has been refused on many occasions. Residents' parking is a premium in Glenavon, and before Christmas I received a message from a resident who received a parking fine early in the morning for parking on the W line, simply because they came home from late from work and they had nowhere where they could find a space to park their vehicle. So had no option but to park on a W of the line. I understand that Blenavon was mostly built when there wasn't many vehicles on the roads. However, many parking areas have been provided over years, but they have not been maintained to encourage parking in a sensible way for all residents to use the surrounding areas. Please, could Torvine, who own these main car parks, help the residents who want to park responsibly by relining these spaces to enable more vehicles to be kept off the roads? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Mandy-Owen.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Hall. I know you've spoken to officers in the past and put requests in for car parks to be relined, and they've been refused in the past. There are a number of reasons why they are not formally lined. If we were to formally line car parking bays, this would require compliance with national parking design standards and therefore would reduce the total number of spaces currently available. They have to be a certain width, so the national standards today would make them wider. At the moment, unmarked areas allow more vehicles, especially smaller cars, to park efficiently, and marking out the car parks would therefore result in a loss of parking spaces. It would also prohibit work vans or small commercial vehicles belonging to residents to park in these car parks. This may lead to more on-street parking and more congestion. Also, there are no traffic regulation orders on the car parks in question, so there are no legal powers to enforce parking rules within the car parks, and as such, vehicles could continue parking outside bays, parking over two lines, or taking up two spaces with the knowledge that no enforcement action could be taken. Given that Torvine do not charge motorists for the use of their car parks, there is no income from parking charges to cover the cost of maintenance, traffic regulation management or resurfacing. Whilst we do, as a council, have sympathy with parking demands across the borough, unfortunately it is not recommended that car parks be lined for the reasons that I've already given. We all know that motorists are legally required to park safely and responsibly. Following Highway Code, anyone issued with a penalty charge notice does have the right to challenge it and may take their case to the Independent Traffic Penalty Tribunal at no cost. So I'm really sorry it's a negative response, but I think it could cause more problems going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Two questions. Is it now time to revisit parking permits? Number one, we've discussed that in the past. Secondly, ward members are aware that Torvine currently own two sites that could be potentially turned in car parking spaces for our residents in Blenavon. Would the executive members support an action to investigate these two sites so we can have more parking spaces in our community? Thank you.
Thank you. Obviously, we can have conversations outside this meeting and discuss those things. With permit parking, unfortunately, no regulations. We've got to wait for Welsh Government. It's gone to scrutiny, everything. We've got to wait for something to be done before any action can be taken from us.
Thank you.
Thank you both. That leaves us question 5, Councillor Janet Jones to Councillor Joanne Gordon.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. As Blenavon's World Heritage Champion, I am extremely worried about the general decline in visitor numbers within our town centre, which will only be enhanced by the closure earlier this month of the Lion Hotel. Not only this, but the Heritage Centre is also closed on a Monday, and so I asked, what can we do to stop this downward trend? How can we better promote Torvine as a great place to visit and linking up with all major attractions to give a first-class visitor experience?
Thank you for your question and also for your dedication as a World Heritage Champion. If I can just quickly touch on the footfall in Blenavon, we do have a footfall counter at the World Heritage Centre. I have asked for some of that data, and as soon as I receive it, I will forward that to you. Also, as part of our future destination management plan, we can also explore further actions to measure how we measure footfall throughout the authority. So a review of the opening hours at the World Heritage Centre, as you know, is underway, and that will consider the merit of opening on a Monday. Some examples of how we currently promote tourism in Torfaen as a great place to visit include a display of leaflets in the World Heritage Centre. More exciting is the videos of attractions uploaded by content creators on social media, and we've also got a Visit Torfaen map which is available online too. But we can and we should do more to promote Torfaen, as you say, as a great place to visit, linking up with the major attractions and giving that first-class visitor experience. So, as outlined in my previous response to Councillor Hawler, work to promote tourism as part of the local economy will be driven forward by the Destination Management Plan. This will include ensuring synergies between existing attractions to provide a unique and compelling visitor experience and attracting new investment into tourism-related business and infrastructure, which will, of course, lead to an increase in visitors. The DMP will also be the driver for attracting investment. I can't speak. For investment and businesses from across a range of sectors as a buoyant visitor economy improves the economy for everywhere, making Torfaen that great place to live and work. And as a champion for the World Heritage Site, your role is really important to us and the community. We'll shortly be celebrating the anniversary of the World Heritage status and how that industrial revolution shaped Glenavon. But as we celebrate the past, we need to look forward to the future too, with tourism at the heart of our considerations. So your role and your contributions are pivotal of how we shape this offer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gorda. And I'm sure Councillor Hall and myself look forward to getting involved to enhance promotion of coming to the area. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, members. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your responses. Takes us to agenda item 17, Cabinet Decisions of the 9th of December 2025. The Cabinet decisions start on page 151 and are for Council to note. There are no challenges to any decisions. Are there any members wishing to ask a question or comment? Members, can I ask you whether you agree with those recommendations, please? Are there any members against those recommendations? Any abstentions? Thank you. Those are noted. Date and time of the next meeting. For your information, members, the next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, the 3rd of March, 2026 at 10 a.m. That concludes the meeting. Thank you very much for your attendance. Have a lovely day.